It was a bright, sunny morning at Greendale School, and the children were excited for their day's adventure. Millie Harding and her two best friends, Tommy and Lizzie, were eagerly awaiting the moment when their teacher, Miss Watson, would announce the class's next big project. "I bet it's something exciting," Tommy exclaimed, bouncing on his toes. "We've done painting, we've done history. What could it be this time?" "I hope it's something we can all work on together," said Millie, her eyes twinkling. She loved school, but what she loved most was when she got to share a project with her friends. As Miss Watson walked into the classroom with a big smile on her face, the children quickly fell silent. "I'm glad to see all of you so eager this morning," Miss Watson said cheerfully, setting down a large box on her desk. "I've decided we are going to work on something special today, something that will help you discover what is important to you." The children exchanged curious glances, wondering what their teacher meant. "You see," Miss Watson continued, "each of you will be given an unwritten page. It's up to you to fill it with something that represents you, your thoughts, your dreams, your adventures, and your hopes for the future." Millie's heart skipped a beat. "An unwritten page," she whispered to Tommy. "Does that mean we get to make our own stories?" Tommy grinned. "I think so. This sounds like the best project ever." Miss Watson passed out plain white sheets of paper to each student, and the room fell silent as everyone began to think about how to fill their unwritten pages. Millie sat at her desk, staring at the blank paper before her. She thought about her adventures, like the time she, Tommy and Lizzie had explored the forest behind the school and found the hidden cave, or the time they had helped a lost kitten find its way home. Millie smiled to herself, but none of those seemed quite right for her unwritten page. They were fun, exciting moments, but she wanted her page to mean something more. "What if my page isn't good enough?" Millie whispered, biting her lip. "What if I don't know what to write?" Lizzie, who was sitting beside her, overheard and gave Millie a gentle nudge. "Don't worry, Millie. Just think about what makes you you. We all have something special inside of us, even if we can't see it straight away." Millie nodded slowly, looking back at her blank page. She wasn't sure yet, but she felt a little better. After all, Lizzie was right. There was something special inside of her, wasn't there? A few minutes passed, and suddenly Millie had an idea. She grabbed her pencil and began to write. "The most important adventure I have ever had is the one where I discovered what it means to be myself," she wrote at the top of the page. She paused and thought for a moment, then continued. She wrote about how she had always been afraid to speak up in class, afraid of saying the wrong thing. She wrote about the time she had been unsure of her own talents and how she had learned that even the small things, like helping her friends or being kind, were important. Her words flowed onto the page, and before she knew it, Millie had filled the entire sheet. She looked down at her work with pride. It wasn't an adventure in the traditional sense, but it was an adventure of the heart. And Millie had realized that it was the most important adventure of all. As Miss Watson walked around the classroom, she stopped at Millie's desk. "What a thoughtful page, Millie," she said, smiling warmly. "You've discovered something wonderful about yourself. Sometimes the biggest adventures don't happen in faraway places. They happen within us, in the quiet moments when we learn who we really are." Millie beamed. She felt a warm glow inside her, knowing that her unwritten page was truly hers. It was filled with the discovery of what made her special, and that Millie decided was the most important thing she could ever write. When the bell rang and the class was over, Millie, Tommy, and Lizzie walked home together. "You know," Millie said thoughtfully as they strolled down the path, "I think everyone has their own unwritten page. We just have to find the courage to fill it." Tommy grinned. "And it's up to us to make it as exciting as possible, right?" Millie laughed. "Right, But sometimes it's the quiet stories that are the most important ones. As they waved goodbye and headed to their homes, Millie felt proud of her unwritten page, of the adventure she had found within herself. It wasn't about being perfect or getting everything right. It was about learning, growing, and discovering what made her, her.